Today we're beginning a necessary but extremely difficult examination of a public figure whose life represented a catastrophic contradiction. We are going to trace the full documented trajectory of Ian Watkins, the former lead singer of the hugely successful rock band Lostprophets.
And that success is key because his celebrated public career was, in reality, a meticulously constructed mask.
And a mask that concealed a pattern of criminal depravity that, as we'll see, ultimately led to his conviction, a lengthy imprisonment, and his death.
Right.
And before we go any further, we have to start by expressing our sincere acknowledgement of the immense pain and trauma suffered by the victims of his heinous crimes.
Absolutely. That foundation is crucial.
Our commitment throughout this is to treat the source material, the documented facts, the evidence, the legal records, with the utmost gravity and respect.
And our objective here is to move beyond just the surface notoriety and really rigorously extract the key knowledge points from the sources. We need to understand the mechanism of deception.
How did he do it?
Exactly. How does a figure with that level of visibility in the music world manage to perpetuate and conceal these devastating offenses for so many years? We're going to detail the entire timeline.
From the rise to fame.
Right through the shocking details of his crimes, the identified failings of law enforcement agencies that, frankly, allowed his actions to continue, and then finally the volatile environment that culminated in his death in custody in October 2025.
It is a profound study in the failure of systems and, the capacity for calculated wickedness hidden in plain sight. So our mission then is to systematically understand the recorded history of this case, using the provided materials as our guide.
Right.
So let's begin by establishing that persona that was so carefully cultivated, the early life and the career that provided, really, the perfect camouflage.
Ian David Carslake Watkins was born on July 30, 1977, in the South Wales industrial town of Merthyr Tydfil.
And the sources highlight some specific details from his youth. Notably, he experienced a significant early loss. His father passed away when Ian was only 5 years old.
And a few years after that, his mother remarried a church minister, which marked a real shift in his family structure. They moved from Merthyr Tydfil toward Pontypridd.
But despite those, complexities in his youth, his academic trajectory was, on the surface, very successful.
Extremely. He attended Hawthorne High School and then went on to the University of Wales, Newport, where he excelled. He actually gained a first-class degree in graphic design.
And this wasn't just a hobby.
No, not at all. He worked briefly as a graphic designer before the band took off, and he later used those professional skills to design the album artwork and merchandise for Lostprophets.
Which speaks to a high-functioning ability, a capacity for calculated creative work.
Traits that would later, underpin his highly organized criminal life. It's a chilling parallel.
And the journey to Lostprophets, it wasn't immediate. It was an evolution through the Welsh metal and punk scene of the 1990s.
Right. In 1991, he was in a thrash metal group called Aftermath, playing with people who would eventually become his bandmates.
Then he played drums for a hardcore punk band, Fleshbind.
And crucially, at the same time, he was the drummer for a more established hardcore band, Public Disturbance, from 95 to 98. And that featured Mike Lewis, who was also a key figure in the Lostprophets lineup.
So the formation of Lostprophets itself, originally called Lostprophets, it came directly from an internal band conflict, didn't it?
It did. Watkins had primarily been a drummer, but he wanted to move to a frontman role, specifically the vocalist, in Fleshbind.
And they said no.
They denied the request. So he and the guitarist, Lee Gaze, left to form their own project. The sources suggest this was a very deliberate attempt to shift their sound away from aggressive hardcore towards something more melodic, more accessible.
And he devoted himself fully to this new role, leaving Public Disturbance in 1998.
And that transition, it paid off dramatically.
Absolutely. Lostprophets quickly achieved significant commercial success. They released 5 studio albums between 2000 and 2012.
And 4 of those albums placed in the UK Albums Chart Top 10. The 2006 album Liberation Transmission actually hit #1.
So they weren't just a British phenomenon. They were a major international touring act, dominating festivals like Reading and Leeds in 2007. And they had a heavy presence in Europe and North America.
That success gave him significant validation and, critically, a platform of intense celebrity.
And beyond their own albums, he was involved in other notable projects.
Yeah, he featured on Hoobastank's track Out of Control in 2003 and also on the Blackouts' It's High Tide Baby. in 2007.
So this whole network of collaboration just reinforced his status as a key, recognizable figure in the rock music world.
He was publicly articulate, successful, the image of a thriving artist.
And it's so important for you to understand the scale of this success because it directly relates to the level of camouflage he achieved. But despite the #1 albums and the major festival spots, the source material notes that the relationship within the band was deteriorating, particularly concerning Watkins.
As the years progressed, he began to actively distance himself. You see this geographical separation. While the rest of the band members largely settled and operated from Los Angeles, Watkins increasingly chose to stay in Wales.
And that wasn't just logistical.
No, it escalated into real, tangible tension and conflict. It suggests a complete breakdown of trust and professionalism even before the criminal investigation began.
The sources cite the bassist, Stuart Richardson, who recalled a specific altercation. It was after Watkins just failed to show up for a scheduled concert.
And that kind of unprofessional conduct from a successful frontman suggests a real disregard for his bandmates and maybe the beginnings of a life prioritized completely outside of the band's structure.
And this estrangement was profound enough that it led to the band's dissolution even before the court delivered the final verdict.
On October 1st, 2013, shortly before the trial reached its climax, the remaining members announced the split.
They released a statement citing nearly a year of coming to terms with our heartache.
That phrase, our heartache, it just speaks volumes, doesn't it?
It's the realization among the other members that the public image they had helped create was utterly corrupted by the hidden life of their frontman.
So we established this public figure who was intelligent, commercially successful, highly visible, which provided the ideal shield.
But the tragic reality is that this meticulously crafted life concealed criminal behavior that, according to the evidence, authorities were tragically warned about for years before any real intervention took place.
And this part of the story, it forces us to confront the failures of the very institutions designed to protect the vulnerable.
The source material is very clear. Reports of abuse and misconduct involving children, including specific concerns about him providing drugs like cocaine, were made to the South Wales police starting as early as 2008.
This multi-year delay in action is absolutely central to understanding the scope of his offending. The police received not one, but a litany of reports, as the subsequent investigation called it.
And one of the most detailed and earliest reporters was his former girlfriend, Joanna Jedzelix.
Yes. By 2010, Jedzelix was aware that Watkins possessed highly graphic images involving minors, alongside drug paraphernalia. Her response was immediate and sustained.
She made multiple complaints to South Wales police about his conduct.
And what's so alarming is that she was not an isolated voice.
Not at all. The sources confirmed she was one of 6 different individuals who raised concerns and spoke to the police about Watkins between 2008 and 2011.
6 different people, over 4 years, attempting to raise the alarm. Yet the material suggests that little meaningful or procedural action was taken during that critical window.
And these reports weren't just confined to the UK.
No. Jedzelix provided a crucial piece of testimony about the time the band spent recording their album The Betrayed in Los Angeles in 2009.
She reported that Watkins admitted to her that he had abused a 2-year-old child in California.
And she took the initiative to locate and contact the child's parents, who then reported him to the Welsh authorities. This raises that really important legal concept of extraterritorial jurisdiction.
Let's just pause on that for a moment. So, for you listening, when we talk about extraterritorial jurisdiction here, we mean that British nationals, like Watkins, can be prosecuted in England and Wales for certain serious offenses committed abroad, especially child sex offenses.
Exactly. The UK legislation is specifically designed to prosecute cases of child abuse regardless of where the crime happened, provided the offender is a UK citizen.
So the allegation of abusing a 2-year-old in California was, legally speaking, a crime that Welsh authorities could and should have investigated.
Without question. But the source material confirms that despite the serious nature of the allegation, despite the cooperation from the victim's family in the U.S., no significant investigation followed.
It's a profound institutional failure.
And this pattern of ignoring or minimizing reports led directly to the Critical Independent Police Complaints Commission, the IPCC, investigation.
The IPCC published reports in 2016 and 2017, and they confirmed what the victims and witnesses already knew.
That detectives failed utterly to act on abuse allegations dating back to 2008.
And the IPCC report did more than just confirm the failure. It provided insight into the reasoning behind the inaction. And this ties directly back to his celebrity status.
It does. The report cited a detective who expressed concern that taking action against Watkins would inevitably draw huge publicity.
And worse.
Much worse. The detective rationalized the inaction by suggesting that because of his fame, Watkins was inherently a target, with a number of fans and ex-girlfriends making allegations that, when investigated, are false.
That quote is just chilling. It explicitly demonstrates how a celebrity profile was used as a shield against a genuine criminal investigation.
Law enforcement, in this context, seemed to prioritize the potential administrative inconvenience or, public relations fallout over the protection of vulnerable children. They made an assumption based on public status.
An assumption of innocence.
Yes. The IPCC investigation confirmed this systemic flaw, and it concluded with a devastating finding.
Which was,
quote, "The consequence of the force's failings was arguably that a predatory pedophile offended over an extended period of time. The report stated unequivocally that South Wales police missed opportunities to bring him to justice earlier."
The sources, quote, a South Wales Police Assistant Chief Constable, Jeremy Vaughan, who later tried to address this. He stated the force entirely accepts and regrets the IPCC findings. But the damage, it was already done.
It was. The fact that Watkins was actively offending between 2008 and late 2012 means those 4 years of missed opportunities had severe, life-altering consequences for multiple victims.
It creates this crucial knowledge point for you about the intersection of fame and law enforcement procedure.
The material strongly suggests his celebrity status didn't just camouflage the crimes, it actively deterred the police from following up on credible leads.
A combination of bureaucratic caution and a cynical assumption about the motives of those reporting the abuse.
And despite these early, clear warnings, it took a completely separate line of investigation, one focused on drug trafficking, to finally break the case open.
The actual timeline of the final arrests in 2012 shows this slow, agonizing process where the net finally closed.
Watkins had been on police radar for other criminal activity. Specifically, friends had reported he was routinely smuggling significant amounts of cocaine and methamphetamine back from Los Angeles.
This drug trafficking led to his first apprehension in June 2012, for which he was quickly granted bail.
And that drug investigation provided the critical leverage. The situation escalated dramatically on November 4, 2012, when he was arrested for a second time.
And this arrest wasn't just for drugs.
No. This was for drug possession, but also for the possession of an obscene image of a child. The first explicit indication police were moving on to the type of offenses people had been reporting for years.
And yet, astonishingly, despite the seriousness of possessing child abuse material, he pleaded not guilty and was granted bail. Again.
It's hard to reconcile the gravity of that charge with the decision to release him. Just 10 days later, on November 14, he was performing his last concert with Lostprophets in Newport, Wales, still maintaining that facade.
But the constant drug offenses finally provided the necessary grounds for a decisive intervention.
When he was arrested a third time on December 17, 2012, again on drug possession charges, South Wales police secured the authority to search his home and, critically, his computer system.
And that search proved immediately fruitful and damning.
It led directly to his formal charging 2 days later at Cardiff Magistrates Court. The charges were comprehensive and severe.
Conspiracy to engage in sexual activity with a 1-year-old girl, possession and distribution of indecent images of children, and possession of extreme animal pornography.
He was finally remanded in custody, along with his 2 co-accused, the mothers of his young victims.
And the investigation, which was codenamed Operation Globe, quickly revealed the calculated and technically sophisticated nature of his offending.
The volume of evidence was immense, but so much of the most critical evidence was hidden behind layers of high-grade encryption on his laptop. The sources state the police had to reach out to GCHQ for assistance.
GCHQ, Government Communications Headquarters. That's a massive step beyond standard police forensics. Why was that required?
It signifies the level of technical defense Watkins employed. Standard police units can handle common passwords, basic encryption. But when you're facing highly complex, state-of-the-art encryption methods, you need the specialized capabilities of GCHQ.
The UK's intelligence and security organization.
Right. Their involvement implies Watkins used incredibly sophisticated techniques to hide the video evidence, demonstrating the extreme lengths he went to maintain secrecy.
And that investigative breakthrough led to the decryption of his laptop password, which is perhaps one of the most chilling, self-incriminating details uncovered in the entire case.
The sources confirm that the password investigators successfully bypassed read explicitly IFUK Kizzy.
That detail is just profoundly disturbing.
It strips away any pretense of impulse control or addiction and speaks to a deep-seated malicious intent. It's a calculated, deliberate pattern protected by high-level security, yet he left this brazen marker of his actions.
Despite that overwhelming evidence, Watkins initially denied the charges. But on November 26, 2013, during a court hearing, he changed his plea.
He accepted guilt on some of the most serious counts. He pleaded guilty to attempted rape and sexual assault of a child under 13. He did, notably, plead not guilty to rape itself, a distinction the prosecution accepted.
And that specific legal distinction is important. While both rape and attempted rape carry immense gravity, the acceptance of the attempted plea meant the prosecution secured a definite conviction for a major offense.
Right, rather than risking a full trial on the full rape charge that might have had a more complex legal hurdle. He also pleaded guilty to 3 counts of sexual assault involving children, 6 counts of possessing indecent images, and the 1 count of possessing extreme animal pornography. The tally of his admitted crimes was staggering.
The specificity of the victims is agonizing. The sources confirm his victims included a baby boy.
And the textual evidence revealed the extent of his manipulation of the mothers. One text message he sent to a victim's mother read, "If you belong to me, so does your baby."
It just demonstrates the coercive control he exerted, viewing these victims and their children as his property.
And this sense of absolute control and lack of conscience was underlined even after the guilty pleas were entered.
On November 27, 2013, the day after his plea was accepted, the sources document a phone call he made from HM Prison Park to a female fan.
In this recorded call, Watkins referred to his sexual offenses as megalolts.
That casual dismissal. Using such flippant language to describe the trauma he inflicted, it demonstrates a chilling lack of empathy.
It confirms the portrait of a predatory individual with a profound moral deficit. And so the stage was set for the sentencing hearing, where the judiciary would make its final official assessment of his danger.
The sentencing hearing was held in Cardiff on December 18, 2013. Watkins' barrister, Sally O'Neill, QC, offered the defense's final argument.
The mitigation was, they claimed Watkins suffered from what the defense termed an obsession with videoing himself having sex.
And they claimed he had no recollection of the attempted rape itself,
suggesting he had only belatedly realized the gravity of what happened after the fact. They were trying to frame the anus as a compulsion rather than calculated malice.
And Justice John Royce clearly rejected that interpretation in his judgment.
He delivered a devastating sentence that reflected the court's view of his malicious intent and the premeditated nature of his offenses.
Watkins was sentenced to 29 years in prison, with an additional 6 years on extended license,
which established that he would have to serve 2/3 of the sentence before being eligible to apply for parole. His earliest release application date would be 2031.
And the court's judgment extended beyond just Watkins?
Yes, his 2 co-defendants, the mothers of his victims who aided his abuse, received extremely severe sentences themselves, 14 years and 17 years imprisonment.
Justice Royce's statements during sentencing were particularly pointed. He said the case plunged into new depths of depravity.
He emphasized Watkins' corrupting influence and, crucially, confirmed the complete absence of remorse. This judicial language solidifies the official classification of Watkins as a high-risk, calculating offender.
And law enforcement figures reinforced this. A senior investigating officer described Watkins as a committed, organized pedophile,
going so far as to call him potentially the most dangerous sex offender he had ever encountered in his career. The Crown Prosecution Service echoed this, characterizing him as a highly dangerous and manipulative individual.
All these professional assessments, from multiple angles, they all aligned. Watkins represented a maximum threat.
And the severity of that sentence was tested the following year. In July 2014, Watkins tried to appeal the length of his jail term,
arguing that 29 years was excessive.
The appeal judges firmly rejected this attempt. They issued a ruling that his offenses were of such shocking depravity that they demanded a lengthy prison sentence. There was no ambiguity.
Following his remand at HM Prison Park, he was initially transferred to HM Prison Wakefield, a maximum security prison,
often referred to as Monster Mansion, due to the nature of the offenders housed there.
Although the sources do note a brief transfer in January 2014.
Yes, he was moved to HM Prison Long Lartin to be closer to his mother after she had a kidney transplant. But by March 2018, he was back at Wakefield, where the state determined his high-risk security status required him to remain.
So, although the legal process had concluded with a massive sentence, His time behind bars did not end his involvement with criminal misconduct.
No, the systems intended to contain him faced continued challenges. The prison system is designed to remove dangerous individuals from society, yet the source material reveals serious cracks in security.
Cracks that allowed Watkins to continue his predatory behavior. In October 2017, years into his sentence, he was accused of attempting to groom a 2-year-old girl's mother from behind bars using a series of letters.
That detail is astonishing. It immediately raises questions about institutional oversight. How is a notorious high-risk offender able to engage in communication that circumvents monitoring protocols?
That was precisely the reaction cited in the sources.
An NSPCC's spokesman reacted publicly, labeling the situation an absolute shambles. They expressed sickness and bewilderment that he could continue this behavior from within a maximum security environment.
The expectation is that all mail incoming and outgoing for a high-risk sex offender should be systematically monitored.
And intercepted if it targets vulnerable individuals. The fact the letters got through suggests a profound failure in the security management.
And this issue of breached security was reinforced dramatically by the mobile phone incident in March 2018.
While still at HMP Wakefield, Watkins was found with a banned mobile phone and a charger in his cell.
Possession of a phone in a maximum security prison is inherently dangerous. It allows uncontrolled communication, organization of criminal activity.
When questioned, he denied using the phone to contact a girlfriend. He offered a different narrative.
He claimed the phone belonged to 2 other unnamed inmates who had forced him to hide it. His reasoning for not naming them
Was that he feared violent retribution if he snitched.
And he also provided insight into the criminal economy within the prison, specifically about the phone's intended use. What did he claim?
He claimed the inmates were looking to exploit his former celebrity. They wanted to use the phone to access and take advantage of the fan mail he still received from Lostprophets fans. They viewed that contact as a potential revenue stream.
Regardless of his defense, possession of contraband is a serious offense.
He was tried at Leeds Crown Court. After a 5-day trial in August 2019, he was convicted of possession and sentenced to a further 10 months in prison, added to his already massive sentence.
This was a clear sign that, even incarcerated, he posed a significant risk that required additional punitive action.
And beyond these infractions against the rules, his notoriety also made him a target for violence.
The sources confirm this pattern of danger culminated in a brutal event on August 5, 2023, again at HM Prison Wakefield. Watkins was taken hostage by 3 fellow inmates.
It was a 6-hour incident. He was stabbed during the hostage situation before prison officers were able to free him.
Initially, his injuries were reported as non-life-threatening, which is often the standard report in these volatile situations. But his own communications later revealed the true gravity.
Exactly. A letter Watkins later sent to a fan detailed the extensive long-term consequences of that attack. He confirmed the injuries were far more severe than initially reported.
He stated that he had suffered bleeds on his brain and permanent spinal nerve damage.
So this incident was a clear, documented sign that Watkins, because of his offenses, was a highly vulnerable and targeted inmate within the maximum security environment.
And this documented history of internal violence, combined with the confirmed institutional security failures, set a highly volatile stage for the final events of October 2025.
Which brings us to the tragic final act of this timeline. On the morning of October 11, 2025, Ian Watkins died at the age of 48 while still incarcerated at HM Prison Wakefield.
His death was the result of a fatal attack inside the prison facility. He was pronounced dead at the scene after prison staff responded.
A subsequent post-mortem examination was conducted, which officially confirmed the cause of death as a stab wound to the neck.
A targeted and violent end to his life in custody.
And the context of the prison environment surrounding his death is critical. The sources highlight that just weeks before the incident, a report from September 2025 had noted a significant escalation in the danger level.
Specifically stating that violence in HM Prison Wakefield had increased markedly.
This documented increase in volatility is compounded by the fact that Watkins was a known high-risk target. The sources quote a former prison governor, Ian Watkins, who commented that Watkins was a high-profile and notorious offender whose risk from others was well known.
And that is a major institutional point. The system was fully aware of his specific vulnerability, especially after the 2023 hostage and stabbing incident.
And yet, despite this high-risk classification and the documented surge in overall prison violence, the safety protocols in place were clearly insufficient to prevent a successful fatal attack.
West Yorkshire Police initiated an immediate murder investigation. They acted swiftly, charging 2 men with Watkins' murder.
The sources detail the profiles of these individuals, which provides context on the maximum security environment. The first man charged was 25 years old, serving a life sentence for murder.
The second man, aged 43, was serving a 24-year sentence for offenses, including abduction and rape.
The fact that the alleged perpetrators were themselves serving lengthy sentences for violent, serious crimes just underscores the level of danger within this specific facility.
Furthermore, the police arrested 2 other men, aged 23 and 39, for conspiracy to murder, indicating this was not a spontaneous confrontation, but had a coordinated element.
As of the time of our source material, a provisional trial date for those charged with his murder has been set for May 5, 2026.
So we have now completed the documented historical record of Ian Watkins' life, from his successful career and the creation of that deceptive public image.
Through the years of ignored warnings and institutional failure, to his calculated conviction, his continued misconduct in prison, and his eventual death in custody.
The knowledge points extracted from this material present a devastating 2-pronged failure. Firstly, the dramatic duality of Watkins himself, the chart-topping rock star who was simultaneously a calculated, organized offender.
And secondly, the profound institutional failure documented by the Independent Police Complaints Commission.
The failure of the South Wales Police to act on that litany of reports between 2008 and 2012, that remains the most crucial institutional reflection point.
That delay, caused partially by what the sources suggest was a deference to celebrity and administrative caution, allowed a predatory pattern to persist for 4 critical years.
This aspect of the case raises significant questions about how law enforcement is trained and prepared to handle serious, credible allegations against high-profile individuals,
Especially when they're confronted with potential public scrutiny.
Understanding this case is vital for recognizing the mechanisms of calculated abuse and the systemic issues that can perpetuate it. As we conclude this intensive analysis, we want to leave you with a final thought to consider that builds on the facts we've reviewed. Given that Ian Watkins was a notorious, high-risk offender whose vulnerability to violence within the prison system was well documented, evidenced by the 2023 stabbing and the governor's confirmed awareness, what further structural modifications or specialized protocols might be necessary to effectively manage notorious, targeted, high-risk offenders in maximum security environments, ensuring both the safety of prison staff and managing the inherent risks associated with the inmates involved.
We appreciate you joining us for this intensive examination of the documented facts in this case.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening.